Hi there, you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name is Matt Wakeling, and this is the show where I speak to leading guitarists and guitar figures from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining me for episode number 108. Now today I speak to the Australian bass player Tal Wilkenfeld. Tal's had an amazing career. At age 14 she started playing guitar, really had a quick connection with the instrument, and by the age of 16 she had relocated to the United States to continue studying. Pretty early on over there she switched over to bass, and within a few years was playing gigs with people like Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, Mick Jagger, jamming with the Allman Brothers, touring with Herbie Hancock, putting out her own fusion solo album, shows with Wayne Krantz. Just an amazing career which keeps unfolding. Tal joins us today to talk about her latest album, Love Remains, which sees her stepping up to the mic, and she's a fantastic singer. The songs are brilliant and the band performances are awesome. So it was a lot of fun to catch up and talk about the record. Let's go straight to the interview. Here we go. Hi, Tal.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, going really well. Welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Oh, thanks.
Awesome. Now, we are from your hometown of Sydney, so it's nice to have a Sydney sider on the phone, albeit from the other side of the world.
You can make it sound like I'm right there, though, right? Just tweak a couple knobs.
Yeah. It's like, that's it. Just tweaking right now, in fact. Hey, congratulations.
Thanks.
Congratulations on the new album. That sounds fantastic.
Thanks.
It must be great to have the album out in the wild after such a process.
Yeah. It's a big relief for me. And I really feel like the surge of creativity again. You know, like once you put something out there, you can't do anything about it. You just gotta let it do its thing. So it's quite freeing, actually.
That's awesome. Now, this is your first full release since your Transformation album, which was released back in 2007. And for anyone who's followed your career, we know for a while you've been working in a really different direction to that first record, working a lot more indie rock and becoming more of a front person and a songwriter. When did the process for Love Remains start for you?
I would say I first started writing for it maybe about 5 years ago. It's been a gradual process because I made this album myself. Like I funded it myself and everything, and so when I started the process, I would write and then go and tour and play with other people and come back and do some more and then record. There were big breaks in between while I put it all together, and then when I finished recording it at the end of 2015, I sent it to Pete Townsend, and I ended up going on the road with The Who in 2016, and then at the end of that year, I had to take some time off because I lost quite a lot of friends in a very short window of time, and then once I felt like I'd recovered from that, I went back into figuring out how I was going to release this album, and it's been quite a long process as an indie artist, but now I'm supported by CMG, which is really, really nice. Thanks to Julian Lennon, who connected us. So it's really great. I feel so great about this whole thing now. But it definitely was a lot of work and a lot of ups and downs.
I bet, and it's a very personal. There's some very personal chapters on the album as well. You really put yourself out there. Can I ask, when your band opened for The Who, I guess you got to road test a lot of these songs. Did playing these songs in a live environment change the arrangements or the energy or the direction of the songs in any way?
I think the songs have have changed in some way from being on the road, but the album was cut before I went on the road. So you're not hearing those changes on the record, but there are live recordings on YouTube of me with the band live, and we play them. Well, it's different musicians as well, so it's just a different approach. I don't really like to tell a musician to play like some other musician. Like, I like to let musicians be their own voice. So it's more about when I'm selecting musicians to play my music that they have, the versatility to play various styles of music, because my music's been influenced from anything from rock to jazz to folk, and just making sure that the musicians are inspired by the various genres that I'm influenced by, and know how to improvise, but also know how to play for a song. Like, that's really important, and it's a tough combination, I found, to find. Like, a lot of the times, improvisational musicians can tend to not really enjoy playing parts, and then some musicians who play, a lot of parts might not enjoy improvising as much. It's like it takes a certain kind of musician that really enjoys doing both, and that even when they're improvising, they're still playing for the song.
Sure, yeah. Well, one thing I loved about the album, there are some really long songs that really unfold over time, like Corner Painter or Hard to Be Alone or Haunted Love. And then you've got these more concise songs like, I guess, Love Remains or Fistful of Glass, where I guess for the album at least, the form is more of a straight ahead pop form. But then you've got those bigger songs that tend to unwind. So that would, I guess, absolutely require that sort of player that you're mentioning.
Yeah, for sure.
Tell me about the tracking. I think I've heard in another interview that you tracked a lot of the album live. Is that true?
Yeah, the whole thing was pretty much a live performance. There were some small overdubs, but the bulk of it is live performance. There's
some great moments in a track like Hard to Be Alone. It really feels like the band is going hard at it, especially in the solo. It's a guitar solo, I guess, but it feels like a band solo because the bass and drums are rocking. It's like a power trio at stages. That's really fun.
Yeah, I think when I first moved to New York when I was a teenager, I started playing with Wayne Krantz a lot, and Wayne Krantz was one of my biggest musical influences, and I got into the habit back then of doing group improvisations. Like he was very big on like nobody is soloing, but everybody is soloing.
Yeah, wow.
And we're just having like a musical conversation. It's like a musical moment. Like nobody needs to, like, it's not just all about one person. And I've always kept that with me. And then when I played with Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter, they had a similar way of approaching solo sections where it's just like group improvisation, just like a group conversation. And so, I've spent enough time with my band now where they understand that that's what I enjoy, right? As opposed to like, let's have this backup band that plays behind this solo that has this peak that goes like this,
sure.
da-da-da. It can be very unpredictable. Like when we're live, we'll go all over the place, and that's what's so fun about it. So, yeah, that's I really enjoy that.
front half of your career, I shouldn't say half, the early stages of your career is really well documented. So you've worked with people like Jeff Beck, you've been in the studio with Prince and Herbie Hancock. What is working with people like that? What do you bring from that now that you're leading your own band?
Well, I think it's the opposite. I wish I had known then what I know now about how hard it is to lead a band. Like there's so much work and it's a lot of pressure and responsibility. And I think that as a sideman back then, I took that for granted. Just think, and I wish I could go back and be like, wow, like I would have so much more empathy for them because it's really like a lot of work. Not that it isn't like the most amazingly fulfilling thing, but it's also just so much work. And so, yeah, I do wish I'd known that then. But in terms of, like, musically, like, I think that, like, the biggest things are hard to articulate into words because, you know, when you have a musical conversation with someone, you tend to pick up on nuances in their vocabulary, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously. But, you know, then obviously you could make them conscious and decide whether they want to continue to be a part of your vocabulary or not. And so, you know, when you're having conversations with people on that level, it's you're picking up really very nuanced things. I can't really articulate it.
Yeah, well, so much of it is unspoken. But yeah, that's very cool.
I think you learn patience too.
Okay, so as a sideman or as a band leader? How do you mean?
Just as an experienced musician, you just, you know, yeah, I know it's a catchphrase, but take your time. Like you just, you don't feel the need to say everything all at once. Like you just, the more you play with these seasoned players, you realize that they really knew how to be patient and just take their time and say what they need to say, and that's it. Okay. You know, don't say too much.
Your development as a bass player, again, it's well discussed. So it seemed to be very quick. You seem to have a real affinity for music once you finally picked up a guitar and then a bass. As a singer, was your development a similar thing? Was it a similar story to get your vocal instrument into shape?
I don't know that I have. I mean, I'm my own worst critic. I mean, singing is something that, like, everybody does, right? Like, everybody can open their mouths and sing.
Sure.
And so it's different to, like, you know, you don't just pick up a guitar and know how to, you have to sort of learn how to move your fingers, and then you can speak through a guitar. But anyone can open their mouth and sing. So it's easier to not train yourself as a vocalist, you know, whereas you can't escape it as an instrumentalist. You have to put in some work. So it's hard to compare those two.
Okay.
And I would say that vocally it's more about being comfortable in your own voice, because everyone has their own voice. Everyone has their own talking voice and therefore their own singing voice. And a lot of people hide their own singing voice, like they sort of overly affect it and whatnot. But if you just naturally sing, you'll have your own sound. And so it's just about, like, sort of becoming comfortable with that and knowing parameters around that. And then I think the most important thing is, like, well, what are you singing about? Like, what are you actually saying? And how do you want to say it? And that's when, like, the storytelling comes in and lyric writing, which is something that really does take time to hone that craft. And obviously there are people that are more naturally gifted than others, but, you know, a lot of reading helps, and reading poetry. That takes time.
Tal, there's some beautiful bass moments on the record. This tune, Haunted Love, has a beautiful accompaniment. It's almost guitar-like.
What used to be invisible, illuminated by a spark. You guard the flame and tenderly hold back the dark. But no, you didn't know about the ghosts left inside of me. Did you, babe? Feeling so alone in the midst of this uncertainty. I can't help but feel guilty when you lie your head upon my chest. You feel the beating of my restless heart.
I kind of was treating the bass like a classical baritone guitar or something, and it's sort of just influenced by folk music and jazz music and classical music at the same time. You know, like the form of it is influenced by classical, and that it keeps sort of like moving into new sections and changing keys and time signatures. It's not a very traditional form.
Yeah.
And so jazz-wise, harmonically a little bit, but folk-wise, just in that, like some of my favorite, like folk or blues songs, you know, they'll add like a beat or take away a beat, like if that's what the story or the melody needs. You know, like they always joke about like Lightning Hopkins playing a 12.5 bar blues, because it's just like, well, whatever the story guides you. And so I like to use that mentality in general with all my songwriting, but it's quite evident in that song because it's just moving all over the place.
Very cool. Well, Tal, I need to let you go, but thank you so much. It's been great to hear the album. It's on high rotation, and it's great to talk to you about it as well.
All right, thank you.
All right, all the best. See ya.
See you in Sydney soon.
All right, there you go. Tal Wilkenfeld on the show, people. That was pretty cool. And man, she is absolutely crushing it on the world stage and has been for some time. The album is Love Remains. Please check it out. There are some links in the show notes for you to have a look at. My thanks to BMG and also to Chris Marrick of Marrick Media. Now, Chris runs a great PR company, does a lot of record label stuff as well, and he's helped us get a lot of big names on our show over the last 3 years or so that we've been running. And I just want to let you know, Chris is heading to the UK in June for his third Heavy Metal Truants charity ride, which is a major event where he and a bunch of music industry professionals will be cycling over 300 kilometres to raise money for children's charities, in particular the Nordhoff Robbins organisation, which does some really great music therapy work. I'm aware of their work in Australia, and they have a UK chapter. So there'll be some links in the show notes to that as well if you'd like to check out what Chris is up to and consider supporting his fundraising there. Alright, almost time to go. Remember, you can always head over to guitarspeakpodcast.com to find links to our social media or how to subscribe to the show, how to buy a t-shirt, all that kind of stuff. Alright, my name is Matt Wakeling. You've been listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. I love it that you're listening. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time. Bye now.